Hey gang, it's Jesse Green, your friend and colleague, and you're listening to the Savvy Debtors podcast. I am joined today by someone whose work I've admired and respected for a long time. And the work that Noliza does is powerful, it's impactful, it's changing lives. And one of the things I want to share with you today is we spoke off air before we got started. In fact, this is take 3 because we had a few tech glitches. But I want to share with you today that this is a topic we're going to cover some in-depth conversations. We're going to get deep, we're going to get practical, we're going to get tactical. But I also want to share with you that we're going to cover some sensitive areas today. So if this topic brings up some stuff for you, feel free to skip it or please lean in and listen as we unpack a whole bunch of stuff that we know is going to be helpful for many of you. Noliza, thank you so much for taking the time to come and hang with us. How's things in Melbourne?
Things in Melbourne is really good. It's starting to get warmer, so that's good.
Noliza, your work, as I look in at your office there, it's beautiful. It's very, very neat and tidy. It's amazing. You've obviously achieved an enormous amount in your life. You've helped a lot of other people achieve enormous things in their life through, as I said, your speaking, through your writing, through your philanthropy, all those sorts of things that you do. It's easy to think that everyone's life looks amazing and rosy and perfect. But I want to ask a little bit about the backstory because typically people don't arrive at the destination in a straight line. There's usually some zigs and zags along the way. And I want to ask, has your life always been as perfect and as glamorous as at least as it looks to be right now?
Well, everything as it looks is not what it seems, that's for sure. So look, my life, I was definitely born into a very affluent family that probably helped set me up, not financially, but the mindset of what is expected to have a really good life, right? Set me up that way. But no, from a young age, life was quite broken because money and Barbie dolls, toys, and a big house don't take away the pain and suffering that can take place. And so from a young age, I suffered a lot because at the age of 6, I was sexually abused by my uncle for a good 3 years. And then at 14, I was raped by my cousin, which forced me at 16 to run away from home and become homeless. And so I became homeless in the streets of Melbourne at a very young age and had to navigate my life from that day onwards on my own.
Wow, there's a lot in there, right? And is it okay if I ask some questions?
Please.
Before I do, I'm really sorry you had those experiences. And thank you for letting us lean into that. 6 years old, that's young, right? At 6, we're not emotionally mature. None of us are. And how do you make sense of those events, if you can make sense of those events? As a child, how do you find the courage to bring it up with your mum and dad? How do you kind of reconcile the fact that this is a relative, someone who's a family member, who you probably have seen in many social environments, whose company you might have enjoyed otherwise?
Loved.
Loved. Someone who loves you. How do you reconcile that? And how do you deal with it?
I don't think as a child that you're even reconciling it or anything like that. I think it was just, I didn't like what was happening to me. And I don't know why. It's not like when my parents came home from work, I'd be like, oh, I spent 2 hours hiding under my bed because my uncle came to get me from under my bed, or my uncle showered me today, or anything like that, right? You sort of set up and groomed, I guess, not to say anything. So I didn't say anything for a long time. I know I didn't enjoy it, that's for sure. But when I told my mom, I think I just told her as a matter of fact, because we were watching TV and I saw 2 people kissing. I was like, oh, Mom, that's how Uncle kisses me.
Wow.
So it wasn't like I even had to have courage because I didn't really know what was going on at all. In between and amongst all of that, my mom was doing TV and I was getting lots of gifts and we were going to lots of family gatherings. And so you don't really realize what's happening. And that's the truth.
And then obviously you go back to Malaysia because in between you migrated to Australia as a family from Malaysia, right? And you go back to Malaysia for a family gathering, presumably to catch up with the relos.
Yes. So we migrated to Australia when I was 12 years old. And the sexual abuse of my uncle happened from 6, so about 8. Yeah, about 3 years around there. And then we come to Australia, we migrate to Australia, and I'm loving life in Australia because it's the land of kangaroos and koalas. I'm with my family. I'm going where there's strawberries here and going to Sovereign Hill and just we're eating McDonald's all the time. Life is great. And then at 14, my parents decided to go back to Malaysia to see my cousins and my grandparents. And there, a cousin of mine, a favorite cousin that I actually looked up to, the eldest of the family, he raped me at 14. And that was incredibly difficult. I felt very much to blame for that because he took me out that night with another cousin to show me out in the town. My mother did not want me to go at all because coming from the Asian community that we come from, you don't go out, you don't do things at a certain age. But she trusted me in his company and he broke her trust. And that was really difficult. Trying to tell the family about what had happened, that created a tsunami of events that I could not even imagine. Instead of getting love and support and understanding, because I was the one who was incredibly broken to the fact that I felt the need to want to take my life. I was 16 years old and I had attempted suicide 3 times, and each event quite graphic to the next, right? To be blamed for being the trouble causer in the family, for being mental, that was really difficult. I think the most difficult part of the whole thing, as I look back, is when you're young and your brain is forming, and when you need to look at your father for trust and security and have certain needs met by your mom as well. And when none of your needs are met, you turn out to be a 16-year-old who's just navigating life literally on flight, fright, or freeze. Your nervous system is just completely not aligned. You don't know what safety looks like. You don't know what trust looks like. You're literally, if you can imagine the character from the Jungle Book, on your own in this world. And that is really, really, really difficult. But at the same time, if you look at the character from Jungle Book, the character learns to swing between trees and have a form of resilience like no other. And I think that's the biggest takeaway I can take from some of my experience. And of course, experience gets more and more graphic after this. I was at a home. I was out of home when I was living on the streets of Melbourne, having to navigate how to get out of poverty. And so I started a small little food catering business. I enrolled myself into year 12. I finished year 12, started getting into university. And the story gets really dramatic because one day I'm walking home from school and I'm now set up and I'm living in South Yarra.
Yeah.
And life started to pick up for me. But I walk home from school one day and I am groomed by a man who says he's a TV executive for Channel 10. And he actually kidnaps me and takes me to a place that I don't recognize. And he abuses me and he almost murders me. And I have to survive that event. How do you not get yourself killed when you're given your last rites and you're about to get murdered? And I survived. And this man was caught and he happened to be a billionaire. And I didn't know he was a billionaire because I was just a young teen. And this was heard in the Australian court system. And I should have been supported by the Australian court system. I should have been supported by organizations. And I wasn't supported at that time. And so this man who kidnapped me, abused me, tormented me, and almost murdered me by giving me my last rites, he got away with the crime. And I think here's the biggest takeaway. You either become a victim to your circumstances or you become a victor. And that point is, how do you sound out the noise of everyone around you who doesn't support you, doesn't believe you? But if you then just even take it to your everyday life and you're at work, you're a dentist and you've got like 20 clients in front of you and someone needs a tooth being filled and someone needs something else. And how do you sound out the noise of all the chaos at work? And that is an art form, to be able to just go, I'm going to move forward, get from one task to the next task to the next task. But rewind from that bit, because I know you're completely speechless.
I am. I'm absolutely speechless, heartbroken. I don't have enough adjectives to kind of describe what I'm feeling.
So when I was 17 and when I ran away from home, I fell in love for the first time. So I met a boy at university and I was completely in love with him. And because at a young age, I wasn't taught boundaries or wasn't taught what safety and love really looked like, I fell into a very controlling relationship. This was just before the abduction. He was incredibly violent. And at 18, he punched me in my face so hard, I had to have the right-hand side of my face reconstructed. That happened at 18. So if we just go back, so 6 years old, I'm sexually abused. 14 years old, I'm raped. 16 years old, I've attempted suicide quite a few times and I run away from home. 17 years old, I fall in love. And by the time I'm 18, I have my face reconstructed because of domestic violence. And then at 19, when I'm walking home from school one day, I'm kidnapped, I'm almost murdered and given my last rites. So if you look at my entire childhood life, it is completely fractured and completely broken. And here I am now as a 49-year-old adult. And some of you will be listening 5 years from now and I'll be like 55. But I'm an adult now who is a mother of 5 children. I am a philanthropist. I'm the founder of a mental health directory. I'm a keynote speaker, number 9 in suicide prevention, top 10 female speakers of the world. And I was honored with the Golden Gavel, Toastmasters Golden Gavel. So I think the real story here is you can have any adversity thrown at you, but how do you make your story not the bad things that happen to you, but the things that you create and build to be the best version of yourself? And that is where the real story is.
It absolutely is. I mean, and it's remarkable to think of where you've come from to where you are. I just can't stop thinking about those levels of trauma because trauma stacks one on top of the other, right? And your ability to cope, your ability to bounce back is impacted by the previous experiences. And you spoke earlier about fight, flight, and freeze.
The four.
And the fawn.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I wanted to ask you a little bit about those reactions and how you've been able to move past it, because fright and flight, they're kind of the first two that we ever hear about, but then the freeze and the fawn part are also really important reactions, and our nervous systems kind of get a little bit haywire. And I will come to what allowed you to transform your life so remarkably. But I wanted to ask you a little bit about, and the reason I'm asking this is because there's people listening to this who will no doubt have had maybe not the same degree of trauma that you've experienced, but something adverse in their life that they're dealing with, and they're dealing with that neuro response to it. How did you deal with that fight and flight and freeze and fawn? And how has that shaped you?
I think I didn't realize any of those that I was doing the flight, fight, freeze before. I had no idea. I became a keynote speaker, I think about 11 years ago.
Yeah.
And when you keynote speaker, you sort of start to learn, I'm not going on stage to unleash my trauma. I'm not going on stage to heal myself. I'm actually going on stage to whisper healing to someone else. It's about the other person that's listening. And so there you do a lot of learning. But not only that, I've been working with amazing clinical psychologists. Andrew Costin is one of my favorite clinical psychs, Dr. Sarah Crome. I've worked with some phenomenal therapists throughout my life, and that has helped me understand where I'm at. And so now I see clients myself, not as a clinical psychologist, but as an executive coach. And it's really being able to have people in your corner that understand the brain and trauma and being able to work through that process. But at that time, no, I had no idea that I had flight, fight, freeze, or fawn response. I just thought I was a very kind person. And so I would always shout dinners, or I would always give to people, not realizing that in a subconscious level, I had no boundaries. Because if me and daddy weren't there, weren't loving me, weren't giving me what I want, there's a little child in me that's like, will always overgive to people without realizing, so that they will love me. But you don't realize this until you've done the work.
So that's a really interesting response. So you're seeking love elsewhere because it was absent, obviously, when you were misunderstood or made out to be the, I suppose, the cause, the villain. Yeah, all of that, which is, again, that's...
Call me Maleficent. I like
it. Yeah. There's a whole story to unpack right there. But your response is to try and seek approval, seek love, I should say, by being excessively kind, excessively generous. I'm really nice, love me in return. Is that basically what it was?
I think so. I didn't realize it then. I had a tailoring business with my ex-husband, my business partner at the time, and we constantly gave. I know I constantly gave people free alterations, free clothes, wherever I could or whatever. But you don't realize it's because there's a lot of subconscious stuff going on. And Only people that unpack it, really unpack it, because you can't unpack it with Instagram. Okay. Instagram reels and this is a narcissist, and this is this, and you can't, no.
Yeah.
You
The,
unpack
the,
it through
the
actual-
three signs that you're with a narcissist, sorry, that's just junk food for the brain. Look, you're absolutely right. I think doing the work is the critical part. And I want to understand what the work actually is, because we hear the phrase, you got to do the work. And obviously the work is going to be different from one person to the next. But in broad brushstrokes, what does the work involve?
Tell you, I worked with Dr. Sarah Crum. She's amazing. One thing that she did with me, I'll never forget. She did a lot of inner child work, but one of the things was sitting down to therapy and just closing my eyes and looking at myself as like the queen, right?
Yeah.
And then look parts of myself as soldiers as well. And then there's a river flowing and just literally like trusting that the soldiers are going to do this and do that. And it's just taking you through a storytelling technique, but it was all inner child work, right? Or like seeing a 6-year-old self of you and visualizing, what that 6-year-old self looks like, and being the adult, being able to come inside into that space and take over and give that 6-year-old child what it needs. And I think I did so much of that in the end, when I left my marriage of 21 years, nobody understood. They were like, what? Why are you leaving the father of your 5 children who loves you? But it's like you get to a point where you realize if you cannot do the work, right? Whoever you are, whether you're a friend or whatever, you don't do the work, it's hard because I can't meet you in that space anymore. Because you don't even know who I am. I'm not the same person, the vulnerable person that I was. Once you do the work, you realize that you deserve so much more. You deserve attention. You deserve a friendship that's going to be present, And so doing the work takes hours and hours and hours. I've also worked with Dr. Andrea Costa, and she's a clinical psych. She works with my practice now, my Mind Hub as well. But she was phenomenal because she was all about the brain. Dr. Sarah Crum, which is all about inner child work. And then you've got Dr. Sarah Crum, which is all about science and the brain and what the brain is doing at that moment. And when you can get the best of those worlds, mix it with yoga, mix it with prayers, meditation, it's healing. Healing. I can safely say I pretty much have left almost all of my past behind me. You're never free from the past because you're always going to get flashbacks and you're always going to be triggered. Sometimes I can't help that. But most days we're on cruise control.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, as you say, you can't entirely leave the past behind. And I can edit this out if it's too personal, but how's your relationship with your mum and dad?
Oh, my mom isn't talking to me at this present moment, but I'm sure she will talk to me 6 months from now, right? Yeah. It's okay. But I don't think that is coming from a bad space. I think that's probably coming from a space where she handled things, or my father handled things the way they knew how to handle things based on how they were brought up.
Yes.
You can never get upset. It is what it is,
Yeah.
But I think being able to have that conversation, and like for me with my parents, to write a book and put it out there for the world to see the entire story, that's not easy. But that was important for me, right? And for me, because then that makes me a more present partner, mother, sister, friend, because the journey is just how to clear me.
Yeah.
Here I am, the better I'll be for everybody else.
I think one of the things that I hope that comes out of that story for you, as I hope it comes out of the story for all of us, is sometimes I've probably come to appreciate this as a parent now, is you realize your own parents were doing just the best they could with the tools they had, right? And one day our kids hopefully will grant us that grace too, because we're parents and we're just doing the best we can with the tools we've got.
Exactly.
And I'm sure we're imperfect parents. I'm sure we're doing things that perhaps in time we might go, oh, I could have done that better or whatever. But everyone's just trying their best. And so I wanted to ask you, I guess, how it's made you a better mother in this process. How's that impacted your parenting style? How's it impacted your relationships with your own children?
I think because I left home at 16 and I was on the streets of Melbourne, and I got into the rave scene and understood the drug scene and understood all parts of life out there and met so many different types of people. I think it's really important to be able to give my children the freedom to be able to DJ, to be able to go to a club, to be able to just have fun with their friends. It's important to be their friend, but it's also really important to have boundaries.
Yeah.
And tell my children, hey, if you don't like the rules in this house, you don't have to live in this home. Because when I was 16, I was independent. So, hey, you can go out and start paying your bills. I don't need you to love me. I just need to be a parent to you. And being a parent to you is making you responsible. So pretty much a loving but harsh mom, because my children are not doing me any favors by loving me.
No.
If that's what I feel.
Yeah.
And vice versa. But we need to respect each other. And that's important. I think there's a lot of parents out there that just really overgive to their children, but they only overgive because perhaps everything was given to them. So they think that's the norm.
Yeah, it's really interesting because sometimes the natural inclination might be to shield your kids more than is helpful, to wrap them in cotton wool. Yeah, if you've had those kind of traumatic experiences yourself, some might react by you going, "Oh my God, keep the world away from the kids," but that doesn't do them either.
But to shield them is also buying them a car, paying for their wedding.
Yeah.
Okay? Oh, I'm going to give you a house. Oh, I'm going to give you 20,000 both of you. I'm going to pay for this. I'm going to pay for that. I'm going to pay for your university. No, I mean, to really make them strong, resilient human beings, they need to start paying for themselves.
Yeah, I'm sure my kids listen to this and going, "Oh, Dad, a little bit of help would be good." But yeah. Anyway, so that's really cool. I want to talk to you, though, a bit about the transition from there to now, because as we said, you've gone from having nothing really other than yourself, and even that was battered and bruised, both literally and metaphorically, to then, I suppose, evolving, metamorphosizing into the person that you are now. What's that process been to go from nothing, in a sense, or having nothing, to being a person who's living a great life and he looks in the mirror and sees someone worthwhile and someone who's valuable in the world? What's that journey look like?
Well, I think that journey, it's taken me a long, I'm a keynote speaker. I've been doing this for 10 years. And I finally just came out with some really solid keynotes, because previously it was literally just storytelling the whole thing and then giving some takeaways at the end. One of my keynotes now, well, there's 3 keynotes. One is the power of nothing, and then there's the conviction effect, and then there's the 1-day reset. And in a nutshell, I think the journey has been all 3 of that. Because do you think that you can create something from nothing? What do you think?
I created a business from nothing. So I absolutely believe that you can create something from nothing.
Exactly. And so for me, it's all about, being able to have a dream, being able to manifest that dream, being able to, it's not just manifesting and just thinking you're going to be sitting on some energy frequency. Not at all. It's about every day working towards that project and enjoying that, and that being your hobby. And so I think when you make a lot of effort, and even if something is failing, it's not going the way you want it to go, but every day you just develop it and you work at it. Consistency is key. And so, yeah, the journey, as I reflect back, it's that I've always just worked very hard on things that I believe in. And so here we are today. When I went out to be a keynote speaker, I really did not think that I would be successful in what I do. And I can safely say I am. I mean, because my story is authentic. It's real, raw. It's coming from lived experience. And sure, some people who want to book a keynote speaker might go, "Oh my God, this is too traumatizing, this story." But you can say it in a way that it's incredibly palatable. These are real life events and everybody suffers, right? And to be able to talk about suffering in a way that is empowering, ultimately, that is the journey. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. And Viktor Frankl, we all know about Man's Search for Meaning, the wonderful book that he wrote. He speaks about we all suffer in life, and how we respond to that is kind of what separates the people that get through it and those that don't. So I want to talk about response and responsibility in amongst that, because to me, one's the root word, obviously, and the other is a derivative. But what does the word response and secondarily responsibility mean to you in this life story context?
Response is how I respond to people. And the responsibility is the boundaries that I have to keep me safe.
Yeah. So can we talk about boundaries? Because I think boundaries are important. And I've gone through some things in my life, not been kidnapped and that sort of stuff. Or
Different.
same, but different. Yeah. But, like, I think all of us have our traumas, right? Is the point I'm trying to make. And I think boundaries are something that I think we all need to get better at. And for a long time, I was notoriously bad at boundaries. And I had a particular family circumstance a couple of years ago, and it was difficult. It was a significant family argument. And I suppose the silver lining in that, and I like to look for silver linings, is that it removed all sense of responsibility from me. I was able to go, oh, wow, okay, I've now been able to recalibrate my relationship with this person. And where I once felt this sense of responsibility to do this and this, those responsibilities fell away almost instantly. And that was the value of that for me. Now, we've been able to rebuild a relationship, but we've rebuilt it differently. And for me personally, that's allowed me to go, I'm not going back to what we had. I'm happy to have a relationship, but these boundaries are in place. So I wanted to ask you how you formed your boundaries, how you articulate your boundaries, how you communicate your boundaries, how you hold your boundaries.
Now I'll just say it loud and clear.
This is the deal, right?
Leaving my marriage was probably one of the most difficult things. And that was really, time heals all wounds. And I think the one boundary that I always wanted was basically a need, an unmet need that I had in childhood.
Yep.
Okay. And that unmet need was I wanted to be prioritized and I wanted to be respected and I wanted to be completely loved and I wanted to be fought for. Because if you look at the history of my life from a young age, I wasn't fought for when things happened with my uncle or my cousin or when my face was broken or when I was kidnapped, even by the Australian government, right? The court system at the time. So that is a very important need. And so that is my biggest trigger, I think. And so if I'm in a space where I'm not respected and I'm not protected, I couldn't care who you are. Like you could, I would cut you. Like I would walk away from you, you know? You don't fight for me, or if you don't stand up for my core essence of who I am as a human being, well, then there's no value for me in that. So that was really incredibly difficult for me to make the move to leave my ex-husband. But I think that I had spent a lot of time waiting for him to validate my existence or to feel very important in his life. So now, even with friendships or anyone in my life, if I feel like it's not a space that is being completely where I know that I can't be number one in everyone's life, I get that. But if I feel like I'm triggered in any way and it reminds me anything of my past, okay, where I'm not valued in your life, like I wasn't valued with my mom and dad at the time, then I will not be in your life. I will just pack and move and start walking. And I think we all need to value each other. And that's the most important thing. So I think to answer your question, it is find out what our triggers are and see where your needs are being met, your most important need. If it's not being met, then you need to move forward because you need to meet your own needs for yourself.
Yeah. So there's a couple of questions that are coming up for me as a result of this. The first one is around, you said that irrespective, it could be the Pope, you remove them from your sphere of influence. It's really, one of the criticisms that's made of me is that I'm fairly quick to kind of cut people away. I don't necessarily see it as a criticism, but some people think it's a little bit harsh. And I like to be kind, I like to be supportive of others, and so on and so forth. But at the same time, I've had to learn throughout life that not every relationship is healthy for me. And for whatever reason, I believe we're a product of our environment. Now, others might have a different viewpoint to me on that. But the group of people that I hold close to me are very carefully curated. And I wanted to ask you about how you surround yourself with the right people, because I've had to learn that, yes, if I'm going to cut people away, there are other relationships I want to lean into as well. And I've gone through a process of kind of identifying those relationships that are very important to me, and I lean into it. But I've also had to prune a few branches of relationships as well. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit about curating that group of people around you for a second, because I think that can be either a superpower or it can be a real hindrance.
Yeah, I like to think superpower.
I think so, but not everyone shares my view on that. I'm just going to say that out loud, Noliza.
Best friends, because I'm sharing your view. So two quotes come to mind. One that I did not make, one quote that I did not write, and one that I sort of created. The first one is, not my monkey, not my circus.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to surround myself with a person that is constantly high drama,
Yeah.
then I'll just sort of step aside, because you can deal with it for a while. And then after a while, you just go, "Nah, this is just noise."
Yep.
And noise hinders your productivity.
It sure does.
Because people think that noise is normal and it happens. But, actually peace and serenity and the calm and going to beach and watching a movie and enjoying life, that should be the normality. And the noise should be what's abnormal. So
Yep.
first, not my monkey, not my circus.
Yep.
So people who have a lot of that high drama, you just sort of step aside and let them have the noise. The
Yep.
second one, which is probably my mantra, my biggest mantra, is pity is poison.
Oh,
So if
yeah.
and this is what I created, actually.
Yeah, nice one.
It's poison. And because it's so important, because if I pity you because of what you went through, or someone pities me, "Oh, Lisa, it's so bad that you went through that. And I'm so bad. I'm so sad. And I feel so, how are you? Are you okay?" You're enabling me to be in that space.
Yep.
So I like to be with people who are go-getters, who enjoy life. I mean, tomorrow is promised to no one. And like Rumi, 13th century Persian poet, wrote, another favorite quote, he wrote, "Life asks death, why do people love me but hate you?" Death responded, "It's because you're a beautiful lie and I'm the painful truth." So death is inevitable for everyone. Life is short. I certainly know that very well, because I've been in circumstances I could not control whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so I want to enjoy life every day. So if I'm going to be around people who don't enjoy life, who just constantly have high drama, it's not what serves me. And my job is to protect me. Okay, maybe not from being kidnapped and all those high drama events, right? But protect me day to day, where I can just calm and focus on my nervous energy and just be chilled and enjoy life. That is important. And so that's my take on walking away from people that don't serve you.
Yeah, I really like that. And just to clarify a couple of things for the listeners here, when I say I'm fairly good at cutting people away, it's not I don't like you anymore conversation or a nasty email or none of that stuff. It's me just stepping away a little bit and putting a little bit of distance there and letting that relationship generally fade through a little bit of what I call benign neglect.
Unless they work with themselves and they realize that there's more to this, and then they come back.
Yeah, it's great. But I really do believe that the people you surround yourself with are one of the major influences in your life. And I think being deliberate and intentional about that, like you are with people who are go-getters and high energy and people who don't pity you and who you don't pity in return, I think that's a really healthy way of going through life is, who do I choose to be with? Who do I choose to hang out with? Because it allows me to show up as my best self. You did talk about something else, which I know you've spoken about elsewhere as well. And that is that primary relationship that you have with yourself. Your job is to protect yourself on a day-to-day basis, perhaps not in those extreme environments that we've spoken about that are beyond your control. But I want to talk about that primary relationship that one has with themselves, because for many people, that's a difficult relationship. For many people, it's not a healthy relationship. And for many people, they don't quite know how to improve that relationship they have with themselves. So I wanted to ask you your thoughts on that topic, because I think self-acceptance, self-love, it sounds great when you hear it. And I've read it, seen it, been to lots of keynotes when everyone says, love yourself. Like, how does someone who's struggled with self-image or self-worth suddenly become worthy of themselves?
So, okay, what I would do, and this is a lot of work that I learned to do, was done to me, and I've learned it now, is say I met a woman tomorrow.
Yep.
Okay. It's just saying there's a woman, her name is Carrie. Carrie really hates a job. Carrie really hates herself. She just feels like she's really unhappy. She feels really stuck. She feels like everyone around her doesn't like her. And she just looks in the mirror every day and just thinks life is terrible. I would encourage Carrie to do would be to tap into 6-year-old or 12-year-old Carrie and be able to really zoom in on what she looked like as a 12-year-old, 6-year-old, or whatever age that is. Step back so adult Carrie looks into 12-year-old Carrie and be able to visualize that 12-year-old, see her hair, see what she's wearing, see her face, be able to really connect with her, and then ask adult Carrie to really just hold that space, close her eyes and say, hey, do I like 12-year-old Carrie? You know, what is she doing? Is she playing on a swing at the moment? Is she eating an ice cream? Well, what can I do to get to know 12-year-old Carrie? So adult Carrie just goes into that space and starts to get to know 12-year-old Carrie.
Yep.
I think it might be a little bit hard to understand, but then takes a little bit of work and therapy. But it's about, if you don't like yourself, who you now are as an adult, then start to like yourself as a child.
Yeah.
Because children are innocent, right? For most part, children are innocent. Try to connect with that and start to get to know that child. And then from there, build it up, baby steps. Because if you can't connect with yourself and get to know yourself, it's going to be really hard to wake up as a 45-year-old and say, I'll have to wear a look today. Because you're only seeing the superficial now, the wrinkle, everything, but you're not really seeing inside, which is when the journey started. Does that make sense?
Makes perfect sense. Do you think that can be achieved quickly, or does that take longer? And I'm asking this because for some people listening, they'll be going, I've tried this and I've tried that and I've done whatever and I'm not there yet. Is it a process, or can it happen in the blink of an eye?
It's a process, but it can happen. I do see clients for that, and I'm able to take them to those spaces because it feels like that's my forte. That's what I'm very gifted at doing. But it takes time. It takes time. And then it's getting the person to spend time with that 12-year-old.
Yeah.
And it's like, so if I'm as an adult now, I had a conference in London, went to London. Then I took a train to Paris, went to Disneyland. And as I walked through the gates of Disneyland, I visualized that I was walking in with the 12-year-old me, the 16-year-old me, the 18-year-old me, the 19-year-old that was kidnapped, visualize all of them and walk in. Being able to spend time going through rides and being the nurturer to all different parts of me. It's time. It can be done. It can be done.
Yeah. Okay. So for those listening who might need to explore some of those things, where would be some resources that they could start with, and just what's the starting point for people?
Most welcome to come and see me if I have availability.
Yeah.
I can be found on my Mind Hub, but also there are plenty of amazing practitioners on my Mind Hub that do all sorts of different work. So my Mind Hub is a mental health directory that I curated, and basically you find the type of therapist that you want based on the type of modality. So it could be a clinical psych, could be a psychiatrist, could be a counselor. It could be a disability support worker, right? Because you need support. So there is help out there. The internet is amazing. There's lots of people around the world that you can connect with.
Yeah. You've been really generous with your time, Noliza. And as I said, this is kind of like take 3 for us because we had a few false starts before. But I want to ask a question before we do wrap up, and that is about one-day reset, because what does that actually mean? Because one of the things I'm curious about is, how can you go through a process, but how can you accelerate a process? How can you rewire, reset, reboot, and move forward after that? What does that mean in your world? Because maybe I misunderstood it, but I want to understand what a reset is and how one might go about that.
So today, I could be having a really bad day and I need to cry and I need to be in a fetal position. I need to eat lots of TV snacks, cookies, and stuff like that. But once the morning has been done, tomorrow I start again. Boom. Day, it starts again. What that is really disassociating yourself from the event, but not saying that you're not dealing with the event, but try to be as factual as you can be.
Yeah.
Is what I'm thinking really true, right? What evidence have I got to prove that's what I'm feeling and that's what I'm actually going through and that those are the facts of the situation. How can I actually help myself in this situation? It's just reframing the situation. So I'm disassociating from it to the point that you're not so emotional, but you become factual and you can stand back. And once you've done that, then resetting and starting again the next day. Of course, it's a whole process, and I do this through keynote presentations, but it's activating a different mindset. It's decide once and leave without hesitation.
Right.
At the end of the day, we are the master to our destiny. And sure, we can't help events that take place in our life. We cannot. In 2017, I did a keynote engagement with my Channel 10 cameraman, and I had an Australian assistant, and I was the face of an airline at the time, and we had a stopover in Middle East. We were on our way to Nigeria to do a keynote presentation. Would you believe me and 2 other Australians, we were human trafficked and almost killed by terrorists.
Wow.
We were saved by military intelligence because my cameraman, Channel 10 cameraman, flew a drone up into the air that alerted military intelligence. We were then swamped and our passports were taken from us and we were detained and we were put in military prison where we had to prove that we were not Australian and American spies, and we got out within 24 hours. But how do you then just go, well, I am going to put the past behind me as much as I can. I'm going to focus on all the positives of what I've learned. Perhaps the positive is not to talk about what it's like to be just abused or raped or kidnapped, but it's about to be able to articulate what it's like to be human trafficked, to articulate what it's like to be in prison and come out of that and reset and restart and reframe again. And to be able to accept that perhaps I don't have as much boundaries as I would like because I'm not going to put up with your crap into my world, whoever you are, right? Because I need to focus on my mindset. It all seems like really large stories and unbelievable stories, but I can safely tell you, you can find the book Conviction. If you can I don't have a book right now, but it's called Conviction. And it's online. It's available in audiobook as well. Honestly, like, life is beautiful if you choose to make it beautiful. That is the takeaway.
Well, Noliza, thank you for sharing your life and helping others see that, what starts off rough can turn into a really beautiful, fulfilling, expansive life, one where you're, as I said earlier, you're having an impact, you're doing things that you enjoy and love and making a meaningful difference in the lives of those around you. You've been a very generous guest today and a very patient one, I might say, when we've had some tech issues, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll talk about that another day. So, Noliza, thank you for sticking with us, and I appreciate that. And ladies and gents, if you want to find out more about what Noliza does, head across to our website, noliza.com, check out the resources there, go to a keynote, buy the book, and explore all those things if that's a fit for you. But again, Noliza, I'm grateful for your time today and appreciate you sharing so generously. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me and listening to such large topics, and to everybody listening on this podcast today. Thank you so much for taking the time to connect with me. And if anyone, has any kind of questions and wants to reach out, feel free to do so. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks, Noliza. We'll talk soon. Hey everyone, it's Jesse here. I hope you enjoyed that episode of the podcast. If you're looking for some more tools, some more insights, some more inspiration to help you create a practice that you love, as well as a life that you love, well, head across to savvydentist.com and check out all the goodies that we have there waiting for you right now.